And joining us now, ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, Washington Democrat, Congressman Adam Smith. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Okay, so we got a lot of ground to cover here. Let's talk about what's happening with Trump and Iran first. That's where I wanted to start with you, giving Iran 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face strikes on their power plants. So we're keeping a very close eye on this. Iran warning of irreversible damage to regional infrastructure and blaming, quote, the U.S.-Israeli aggression as the root of the key oil passage remaining closed. So, you know, Trump is laying down this threat, right? And is it going to be enough to reopen Hormuz as we stand here today? Your thoughts?
No, I don't think it will. I mean, look, Trump and Israel basically have threatened the existence of the Iranian state, and they're reacting as we predicted they would, basically doing everything they can to try to disrupt the international economy to try to stop that attack. So I don't think it's going to work if we threaten to do that. And if we carry out that threat and destroy Iran's infrastructure, they will escalate as well. And the crisis around oil and also around fertilizer, by the way, which a lot comes out of the Middle East as well. The global economy will continue to suffer enormously as this war continues and escalates. Look, as long as Iran thinks that their regime is under threat, they're going to try to block the Strait of Hormuz, and they have the capability of doing that. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes a few drones and some missiles to be able to threaten that, because commercial ships are not going to take the chance. I mean, even if they had an escort, there's the risk that something could get through and damage them. So, no, I don't think this threat's going to end the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, and as Americans are watching this, so many people tuning in, wondering what it means for them, right? We've got stocks tumbling, gas prices reaching its highest level since October of 2023. So what do you say when your phone rings, when Americans call up to say, what are we doing here? How are we going to get over the economic effects of the conflict?
Well, what I say is stop the war. I don't think the war should have been started in the first place. And look, we've been wrestling with the question of what to do about Iran for a long time. I've been on the Armed Services Committee in a senior position for quite a while, and I've been in these briefings for, 10, 15 years. Iran is unquestionably the leading state sponsor of terror. Their ballistic missile program is a threat. They continue to flirt with nuclear weapons. They destabilize countries around them. What do you do about it? We have contained that threat over the course of 10 years. And there was always that frustration because containment, deterrence, those don't ultimately eliminate the problem. So you put on the table, what are the military options that could eliminate this problem? And what we were told over and over again is really nothing. Iran is 93 million people. Their regime is dug in. They have military capability that can survive our strikes. And will we be better off after those strikes? And the conclusion was no. Donald Trump chose to ignore that advice and believe that he could go in and somehow use military might to change that entire equation. Heedless of the cost that we've seen, we've had 13 service members killed, over 1,000 civilians, including 150 schoolgirls in Iran, massive disruption of the global economy. And guess what? The Iranian regime is still there. Now, the threat has been reduced, no doubt about it. Their ballistic missile programs are less than they were when this started, but it hasn't been eliminated. And when this is over, are we going to be in a substantially better position in terms of Iran? Seems unlikely, and our global economy and global oil supply will have been massively disrupted. And this is going to last for months, even after the conflict ends, and there is no end in sight at the moment.
Right. I mean, we've been talking about that lasting months into August at least, maybe. So we're talking about the economic impact, and then we also are focused on security here in the homeland. The Senate convening on Markwayne Mullin's nomination to become the next DHS secretary. Many people wondering if Democrats can stop the shutdown. That seems to be the key question here.
Yeah, well, it's really frustrating to me because I watched your interview with Senator Blackburn. On the table is funding everything but ICE. And Senator Blackburn said what many Republicans have said, because of the reconciliation bill that pumped another $190 billion into ICE, ICE has plenty of money. Why won't the Republicans allow a vote on what we have offered, which is fund everything, TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA, except for ICE, and continue the debate about how to properly reform ICE? Why won't, I mean, Senator Blackburn wouldn't even address that issue. Why won't they allow us a vote on that? That would fund TSA like that. So we're going to keep the pressure up on Speaker Johnson in the House to allow us to have a vote on that and actually do what Senator Blackburn and Republicans have claimed they want to do.
And I also wanted to ask you about this whole idea of ICE showing up at airports to assist with TSA. That came kind of as a surprise. I want to just give you a quick second to respond to that idea.
Sure. Well, it depends on it depends on what's their role. What do they do with them? I mean, it's certainly concerning that we've added so many ICE agents who have not been properly trained, and also the rules of engagement that they were given. We saw this in Minneapolis, but we've also seen this all across the country. There have been 3 people now that have been killed by ICE agents, but a whole bunch of others who have been injured and/or detained illegally because the rules of engagement are basically go in and crack heads and do what you want to do, and the law doesn't really apply to you. Now, when they show up in the airport, what are their rules of engagement going to be there? So that is concerning. And again, there's a very simple solution to this that would prevent any debate about the wisdom of sending ICE agents into airports, and that is Republicans let us have a vote on funding TSA, which we want to have, and then we wouldn't have to be having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, as we take a look at our screens right now, we've been showing these images all week long. It's been an absolute mess at many of our nation's airports, with some smaller airports threatening to close because they just don't have the means to get TSA to help people out. Earlier this week, I was over at Newark. I spoke to travelers about what the game plan is, because let me look at this. I mean, going to the airport 3-4 hours early. Here's what one traveler told me. Did you have a strategy coming?
Yes. Normally I wouldn't be here yet. I didn't want to take any chances, and I have TSA pre-check, but I still didn't want to take a chance because I heard it's going nuts. I saw pictures of people waiting online in San Juan, and I'm like, that's not going to be me.
All right, I don't know if you've been traveling lately, but I'm just wondering what you say to travelers like Joe, directly feeling the effects of the shutdown, and you know, how this is going to be fixed.
Yeah, no, I have. I spend a lot of time in airports,
right.
Nature of my job. So yes, I have experienced that. And we need to fix this problem. And let me just say also, look, again, there's a very simple way to do this. We've had this bill out there for a month now that would have funded TSA that Republicans have refused to allow us to vote on. But since they refuse to allow to do that, I think this is a pretty important week. I think we should have a discussion. Okay, you're not going to do that. What do you got? You know, what is a reasonable place to be to do this? We need to solve this crisis. And I want your viewers to understand, I'm not just saying, oh, that's the Republicans' fault, I'm out. No, we need to have a conversation to figure this out. And if they're going to be unreasonable on this point, is there another way to do this? This is an urgent problem that Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate and the White House, need to get together on now and solve.
All right, very good. We always love having you on the show. Ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, Washington Democrat Adam Smith, getting to both sides here on NewsNation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a mess, and how scary is that? Major evacuations in Hawaii as heavy